Welcome back to Pain-Free Periods with Stasha. I am your host, Stasha, the period coach, endometriosis warrior, and your guide to period pain solutions that actually work. Over the last 5 episodes, we've covered a lot: the 4 root causes of period pain, hormonal imbalance, chronic inflammation, nutrient deficiencies, and stress and nervous system dysregulation. We've talked about the science, the frameworks, and the actionable steps that you can take to start healing. But today I am going to do something different. Today I'm going to tell you my story. Because I'm not just a coach who started doing this randomly. I'm not somebody who just studied this out of curiosity. I am somebody who lived it, who fought for her own life. Someone who was told her pain was normal, dismissed, all the classics for decades. Someone who doubted herself, because that's what happens when you are medically gaslit forever. And someone who felt like she was falling apart and would not live to see menopause, frankly, until I finally figured it out. So today we're going to peel back the layers of my onion. I tell this story because if it helps just one person not feel alone, feel a little less alone, feel seen, feel understood, or just to understand why this is such a passion for me, why I'm doing what I'm doing. And when I say I really truly mean it, then it matters, right? That's worth it. If it gives you courage to try something because you're like, well, heck, she was on the bathroom floor praying for death, as am I. Maybe I can actually reduce my pain. That little glimmer of hope is all it takes to start moving forward. So I became Stasha the period coach because I lived it. I studied it. I trained. I worked with clients. I helped others reduce their pain. I built a practice around women understanding their bodies and finding real relief. That's what it is. That's what I do. I stop one more woman from being in pain. That's really the core mission of what I do. That's why I'm doing this podcast. I wanted another outlet out there in the world that was free and accessible for literally everybody to reduce their pain. Just one more woman with less pain. That's what I want. So that's why I'm doing this podcast for you, with you, hopefully. I know what it's like to live alone in pain, to feel alone in pain, to be dismissed, to fight against everyone systematically, doctors, systems, patriarchies, everything to find answers. And not everything is going to work for everybody. That's not what a free podcast can do. But most things will work for most of you. That's what I really want this to be. We're not just talking about physical pain. We're talking about the pain of feeling utterly helpless, giving you your power back, taking your power back, learning that you can trust your body again, learning that you can listen to it and trust it. It's peeling back the layers of your onion until you find the relief you deserve. It's definitely a big mission, core mission in my life. And today I'm going to tell you why. So I wrote my story when I wrote The Revolution Will Be Bloody. I really tapped in. I cried a lot. It was kind of traumatizing, but also very healing. It was like, oh gosh, I have to go down this road again in a really real way because I wanted to write it for this book and really write it well. But I also definitely felt like I realized things. I made connections I hadn't made before because I went back and looked at it. I felt like I moved forward more. I healed more. So I am going to read from The Revolution Will Be Bloody a bit, and I will absolutely just kind of free flow tell you the story as well. But the first line of my book in the preface is, if you see your period as a curse, I get it. And I want you to know, I get it. If you hate your period, if you hate your body, if you hate all of this, I 100% understand, because me too. I 100% did as well. So I want you to know just how much I used to hate my period and obviously why. That way, when you feel like I couldn't possibly understand you, I couldn't possibly understand your pain, I couldn't possibly, I'm a crazy lady for now understanding and enjoying my period, you can stick with me because you'll see, I have been there. So I had really bad periods right out of the gate. I don't really remember how old I was. I was in my mid-teens. I was late. I was a dancer. I was 100 pounds soaking wet, and you do kind of need to hit about 100 pounds to get your period. I was the fourth of 4 children, and 2 of them were girls, so 3 girls, and my mom doesn't remember when I got my period either. Just that it was later, mid-teens, high school, somewhere in there. I do remember the first time I got my period. I remember it being quite painful and uncomfortable and being like, oh, this is not good. I do very clearly remember the first time I passed out from the pain of my period. I was in the shower. I had a shower in the basement, like just a little standing shower, but it was mine. I didn't have to share it. So I really liked it. And I passed out in it. The pain hit me, just walloped me right upside the head, and I went down like a sack of potatoes in the shower. I do remember crawling out of the shower. Like I remember reaching up, turning off the water. I remember just trying to crawl out of the shower. I wasn't sure how long I had been in there. Not long enough that anyone was like, hey, you're wasting water. So I guess it wasn't that long, but I do remember just kind of coming to and being like, oh gosh, this is not good. And I crawled out of the shower stall and crawled up the stairs. My poor dad was like, we need to call the emergency room. And my mom was like, it's her period. We can't, there's nothing the emergency room can do. Oh, this is the 90s. So, also remember kind of rural upstate New York, 90s, not a lot of options. Okay. So that was bad. I also remember passing out in front of my locker in high school. I remember the cold, hard floor, that like granity tile stuff that they have. I just went down again hard, and I realized that I had my period. I passed out in an English class, and I woke up in the nurse's office one time. That was a fun one where I was like, aren't I in English? Nope. Turns out I'm in the nurse's office now. It was not good. I passed out a lot in high school from how bad the pain was. I'm going to tell you, it doesn't make you popular. It doesn't make people want to hang out with you more. High schoolers don't seem to have a lot of empathy. At least they didn't in the 90s. I do remember coming to and somebody being like, what happened? And I got my period. It really hurts and I pass out. And they were like, again, the 90s, ew, TMI, so gross. So I remembered I had to protect other people's feelings about my period, right? Like I couldn't mention that I had a period because that just grossed people out. So I had to, somehow in my trauma of period pain and passing out, I also had to protect other people's emotions. So I was shaking, shivering, sweating, passed out on the floor in horrific pain and still comforting other people, making sure that they were okay, that they were comfortable with the situation as well as they could be, right? That's the anger in there, right? Just, I don't know that I will ever not be angry at that situation. It was not my fault. It was not their fault. It was social, society, patriarchal conditioning. I get all of that, but it still makes me angry. And I don't know that I've done a lot of work on it. And I don't know that I don't, you know what? The pain, that anger is not a bad thing. I don't want to dismiss it or bury it or pretend it doesn't exist. It is an anger that is well-justified anger. And sometimes that is the anger I need to tap into to get something done, to bring something forward, to finish a book, to whatever it is. But sometimes that tapping into that anger really actually is an asset. So don't let anyone tell you that your anger is not worthwhile. I remember spending the week before every period with cramps, feeling angry, scared, sad, depressed, anxious. I remember feeling so foggy. It was hard to think, sometimes impossible to think. I was exhausted to the core, confused as to why it was happening. I call that feeling hollow bones to this day, that fatigue, the chronic fatigue that comes from chronic pain still sits with me, but just the chronic fatigue of endometriosis still gets me, and I still call it hollow bones. Even my husband will sometimes look at me and go, "Are you starting to feel a little hollow boned?" And yeah, I am. Like all of a sudden your arms are so heavy, it's so hard to lift them. It's just heavy muscle and sinew, and you just can't lift your own arms because they're too heavy. You can't take a step. It's just too hard. I remember getting really hot. I'd wake up a few nights before my period was due, soaked through with sweat, which is when they were like, "Oh, hot flashes." I was like, I don't know how I would know the difference between a perimenopause hot flash and a endometriosis hot flash. Like, I've had them my whole life. So I was hot. I was freezing, teeth chattering, blankets piled on me, sweating, miserable. I'd get hit by a wave of pain. My face would turn white, no lips, completely gone. The whitest white girl you've ever seen from the cold, frozen tundras of the north, like absolutely white. People would look at me and be like, "Oh my God, you look like you're about to die." Like, not good, right? So it was very alarming to everyone around me. It still can be alarming to those around me. I don't get the pain like I used to, but sometimes that just shaky, clammy vibe comes over me, and it's not the same pain, but it's that drop in blood pressure, blood sugar, everything just sort of crashes out. It's just like a mess in there, and I still kind of get pale and pasty sometimes, and sometimes I still have moments where like my husband will be like, "Do I need to catch you? You gonna be okay?" And sadly, it just got worse from there. So that was teen land. It got worse. It was the beginning of every period. After that, the storm really began. So for the first 24 hours, I'd stay in the bathroom, unsure of which end to put over the toilet. I remember throwing up along with endless diarrhea and bleeding. Everything was coming out of everywhere. That's just how it was. After several hours, there would be nothing left in me to come out except blood. I would still be bleeding, just pouring blood. So I would be lying on the floor of my bathroom, sobbing, dry heaving, because of course the nausea didn't go away. Just there was nothing left to come up. Bile sometimes, but just nothing. In pain, just in pain. That pain of your chest from throwing up, that pain in your gut, your abdomen from all that puking, your pain in your lower body from all the diarrhea, the pain in your uterus and the bleeding, just pain. Headache from the dehydration. I mean, pain in my hips, down into my knees, just pain basically from the crown of my head to the tips of my toes. Just everything was in pain. And that would be day 1, day 2, day 3. Really just horrifyingly bad. It was so bad that I couldn't lay still. It hurt to move, but it also hurt to be still. And I would have to get up. I would have to climb into the bathtub, into boiling hot water. And yes, I did give myself blisters from how hot the water was more than once. I would lie on the floor, the cold floor, because all the bathrooms I've been in had tile floor. So I'd lie on that cold floor, and then I would get into the bathtub and boil myself, and then climb out, maybe to throw up, maybe to bleed, but something would probably come out of me, or at least try to come out of me. And then I'd lay back on the cold floor, catch my breath a little bit, and then climb back into the tub and boil myself. Just endless loops. 2-3 days every single month. I had regular periods, so every single month. It is the worst case of food poisoning you've ever had, where you can't leave the bathroom because you don't dare get away from the toilet. And so you've got a garbage can beside you, you're on the toilet, you're miserable, and it's 3 days long. It's not 24 hours. It's 3 days. Your eyes and nose are just rivers, just pouring because of all of the pain and the nausea and the throwing up and the everything else. Every freaking thing that can pour out fluid is pouring out fluid in utter misery. You're empty, you're exhausted, but you're still violently reacting, right? So you're still just There's nothing left to give, but you are forced to give more. You are forced to continue through this pain. You have no other option. It goes on for days. You're bleeding, cramping. Narcotics don't help. I know, because I was given prescription ibuprofen and that didn't work. And then I was given prescription codeine Tylenols. That didn't work. I was given Darvocet. That didn't work. I was put on every birth control, including experimental birth controls that had to be pulled from the market because too many women died. All women, there's women who die on all birth controls, but too many women died on this particular birth control and I was taken off of it. I was on everything. I remember laying on the couch watching the old 90s Batman cartoon because, it was the 90s. You had to just watch what was on TV. And it was mostly like black and white. I mean, I don't know if you were alive then, but if you were, it was very grays and blacks and whites. And I remember being on the narcotics and going, boy, Batman's real colorful. Still in pain. So like on narcotics to a point that like I'm watching a cartoon kind of hallucinating, but still in incredible pain. Still aware of the pain. Just in this weird dreamlike state where I was still in pain. So when I was a teen and I went to the doctor, obviously I have good parents. They took me to a ton of doctors. And at that point, at least the training that they got where they said that it would take years for endometriosis to develop so that you couldn't have it as a teenager. And I guess it didn't really matter that I didn't get a diagnosis then because there was no answer to it then anyway. But they just were like, well, it can't be endometriosis. It must just be painful periods or it's in your head or something like that because you can't have endometriosis as a teen. It has to take years to develop. So I never had the surgery, the confirmed diagnosis. I do know it's genetic. It's handed down through the matriarchal line. My mother and my aunt had it. And since I got no help from answers or help from doctors, I just laid in a bathtub fantasizing about scooping out my own uterus with an old rusty spoon. I don't know why it was an old rusty spoon in my head, but it was like, I'll use an old rusty spoon, just get it out of me. Like, and that was the mentality anyway. I dreamed of a hysterectomy as a teen. Now I know that painful periods may or may not actually be solved from a hysterectomy, especially if it's endometriosis, because the whole point is that it's not in your uterus. So a hysterectomy may work, but it may not, because by definition, endometriosis is outside the womb. However, for things like adenomyosis, it's literally in the womb, and hysterectomies are great, except you can only diagnose that after hysterectomy. So it might work for you because it might end up being just that particular flavor of endo or Aden or something else that is more uterus based. But for those of us that are endometriosis people, it could or could not work. So I guess I'm kind of glad that I did not get that hysterectomy at that age, because I did learn how to figure it out and I got to keep my hormones, which are essential for your health, your well-being, especially short-term and long-term. There's studies now showing that removing the uterus can affect memory, especially short-term memory. So it can increase memory loss, brain fog, those kinds of things. They don't know why, but it is certainly something that has been showing up in studies. So it is more than just painful periods. Like, it can affect your brain health. So it's really brain, bone, cardio, everything. So it really is kind of a big decision to make. I did not know that at the time. I just knew I was in pain and I knew that it was my period, and that was that, right? Like, that's all I knew. At the end of the day, nothing helped. There was begging, pleading, sobbing, crying for death. I mean, I was lying on the floor of my bathroom on that cold tile, too weak to even raise my head, begging for death. And honestly, I don't know that I could have gone a painful way, but I thought long and hard about pills. And then I realized, well, I can't hold anything down. I'd have to take it when I'm not in pain. And did I really have it in me to myself when I was not in that level of pain? And I don't know. I really don't know. I really don't know what it would have been like. But I also wondered how much pain the body can withstand before it just gives out. Like, how much pain can the human body withstand before the heart quits, before a blood vessel explodes and you bleed out, before something happens. I thought long and hard about that every single month on the floor of my bathroom. I also thought out what that would look like, right? Naked on the floor of my bathroom, just covered in blood and dead. But they can't find a single wound. Like, where's all this blood come from? I thought about that a lot. What would the poor people who had to come find my body discover? Like, what would that look like? Would I have burn blisters from the bathtub on? Would they think I was tortured? Like, what would happen? I also wondered if I would just pass out in the bathtub someday and just drown. That was also well, maybe I'll just drown in the bathtub and I won't even know it. Like, that could be a good way to go. I really thought a lot of it. That's how bad it was. I understand what a painful period is. I really thought my period was trying to kill me. It was absolutely trying to kill me. You can only survive for so long like that. And I really thought that I can't do this anymore. I am going to die. Whether it's an accident or it's a blood vessel bursting from the amount of pain or something. But I really did not think I was going to make it into my 20s. And then when I made it into my 20s, I thought, well, there's no way I'm going to make it to 30. I really just did not think I would make it to even perimenopause. 40s. I really didn't think I'd make it through 30. That was my best guess. In my teens and my 20s, I thought somewhere in my 30s, I would kick the bucket. Just didn't think I would make it that much further than that. I have had near-death experiences. I was stuck under a rock when whitewater rafting one time, and the kayakers had to come and get me, but all the water was in my lungs. I had to be thrown over the raft and, the water kicked out of me. I got caught on a hailstorm on a ridge in Bryce Canyon a long time ago, but I was up on the ridge and a hailstorm just came in, blew by. Lightning was hitting the trees that were already black from previous lightning strikes around me. And I thought, okay, that tree just got struck by lightning. It's just a matter of time before I get struck if I don't get out of here. But I was like, well, at least I died doing something I loved. If I kick the bucket here, at least, I'll have died doing something I loved and not on the floor of my bathroom naked in misery. So I was like, you know what? Not a bad way to go. I would rather be back on that trail or in those river rapids any day of the week before having another period like I used to have, right? I would much rather be in one of those near-death experiences again before having a period like I used to have, before having the pain like I used to have. Unless you think I have low pain tolerance, and that's why I was in such pain, because I'm a weak woman. I want you to understand that I danced professionally for 20 years. I danced on broken toes in point shoes and smiled for hours through the show. I danced on bleeding, ripped toenails that were ripped from their bed, smiling for the crowd, right? I don't have a low pain tolerance. I have a very high pain tolerance. That's how bad it was. I mean, I could dance on a broken toe in point shoes and smiling and be fine because it wasn't as bad as my period. It just wasn't that bad. It was fine. It was not a big deal. And I went to dance classes in that misery. I mean, I would drug myself and drag myself to dance classes and sit on the floor with a hot water bottle in misery because I just didn't want to miss it. That's how crazy, but that's how high a pain threshold I do have. When the NHS came out with its top 20 most painful conditions in the world, I've had 3 of them. And I laughed at the other 2. I was like, that's supposed to be painful? That didn't even hold a candle to my period. That was a baby pain. That was let me take an aspirin and nap pain. Are you kidding me? So anyway, a little indignant, but I was traumatized by my own period. And I mean that literally. I literally was traumatized by my period. I have had PTSD symptoms. I've never been diagnosed with PTSD, but when I look at what chronic PTSD looks like in people, I go, well, that's a perfect image of me. When I hear stories about PTSD from people, I'm like, yeah, that's the only thing I don't have is a noise trigger of a soldier back from war. But all of those PTSD symptoms, I checked every box. So I really, truly was traumatized by my own period. My own period gave me complex PTSD. I still have some mild PTSD symptoms, and I work on it always, and probably will work on it until I'm into menopause. And then I may still work on it, because who knows what happens in that case. But we'll see. It's certainly not something that I have let go. I want to be fully healed. I want to be fully in my being. So it's certainly something that I'm still working on. And I do use all of the tools available to me that I have learned over the years for myself, right? The things that I'm talking to you about in this podcast, in all of these episodes that I've done, and the many, many more to come, I've done. I've tried. Some of them may not have worked for me, but they've worked for clients. And most of them have worked for me. When we're talking about all of the food and the movement and the everything, they've all worked. They've all peeled back a layer of the pain, right? The pain onion. So it really is living proof that these things can work. They can help. They can reduce the pain. Now, I'm not out on a white horse in a white tennis outfit on a white beach shooting the breeze, playing, Olympian tennis every month when I have my period. But it's not what it used to be. It's not even a shadow of what it used to be. So that glimmer of hope, I'm passing my hope torch on to you. That flame of hope from me to you, that doesn't have to be forever. It can actually be better. So when I tell you that you can heal your relationship with your period, I truly believe it. And I know it can be done, because I was in an abusive relationship with my period, and it almost killed me every single month for decades. I spent most of my bleeding life thinking there's no way this can be normal. I absolutely refuse to believe that the cave women back in the day had these same problems. So I started my journey on my own, very much on my own. Western medicine had told me to fuck off, useless, can't do anything for you, you're a crazy lady, get out. So I was truly on my own. I had no one to help me, and I couldn't live with this for 40 years. So I did a lot of research, and I read a lot of books, and I tried a lot of different things, and I put things together, and I talked to a lot of people, and I talked to herbalists and acupuncturists and acupressurists and Ayurvedics and Chinese medicines and spiritual leaders and shamans and you name it. I've probably tried it in some shape or form. I did everything. I experimented. I was my test subject for everything. And I found things that helped. I found things that were very expensive that really didn't help. I found things that were really cheap that helped immensely. There was no cost correlation. There was no specific thing like, this one thing, this magic pill. That doesn't exist. But I got a lot of things. I put it all together, and I realized there's no one answer. It took combining everything that I had learned in all of my journeys, and I put that all together with my cycle, and that's how I realized this is what we need to do. It's all of these things. We need to revamp, tweak, little here, big there. Little bit this, little bit of that, a lot of this, right? It was just the combinations that really came together. So there were two defining moments in my journey for the pain reduction. One was I cannot have gluten. It is so inflammatory for my body, and oftentimes autoimmune disorders work together. And while endometriosis isn't an autoimmune disorder, it does sort of act like one in a lot of ways. So I probably am celiac. Never needed. I figured out the gluten thing on my own, and by the time a celiac test existed or was told I could test for it, you had to eat gluten for 2 weeks, and I was unwilling to be miserable for 2 weeks and then miserable for my next period. So I just don't eat gluten. That was a big one for me. That's why I talk about trigger foods that often for people who are in severe pain, whether it be endometriosis or PMDD or those kinds of things, there's often a trigger food, something that's part of the problem that just cannot be part of your life moving forward. But in the process of tweaking my diet and trying different things, I discovered that eating with my cycle was a huge help, and doing things like making sure I was getting the right nutrition in the right phases of my cycle really made an enormous difference. The second moment was when I had locked in the diet. I knew what was going on diet-wise. I had been good. Things were working really well. And then I started my own business and I was working myself to the bone. I was running my business. I was running kind of two businesses. So I was still doing clean dinners and health food catering and my weekly pop-up dinner and foods for juice bars and stuff and farmers markets. And I was starting period coaching and I was still working. So was I still working at the restaurant and still working at the studio? I was the studio teacher, so I taught the teachers for a studio. We did ballet bar, Pilates, yoga, these kinds of things. And then I was also waitressing, running a restaurant, because cash, I don't know, but I was working a ton and I was burnt to a crisp. And my period came back with a vengeance. So even though I had all these dietary things, and I had ate a much cleaner diet then than I do now, and I was still right back on the floor of my bathroom. And that's when I really realized the culture that we live in, the pace that we're expected to run, and the advice out there to live like a bro hustle culture was absolutely the antithesis of what my body needed in order to heal and not be in pain. So I knew it was really, if I wanted to find peace, if I wanted to be free of the pain, I needed to lock in those physical things like food and movement and smells and sights and sounds, like all of the physical senses, and the spiritual things, the working on the PTSD and the trauma and all of that. But also I needed to unplug from the patriarchy. I need to unplug from the capitalism bro culture. And you can only do that so much because you still need to buy food. I understand that. I'm not saying I don't make money. Obviously, I need to make money. I want a roof over my head. I want to drive a car down the mountain to get groceries. Your greenhouse can only produce so much. So I still need to make money, but I also realized that my version of success wasn't going to be what the bros said was, multi-millions, private jets, like all that stuff. My success was, did I help another woman have a better life? Did I help another woman have less pain? Success. Did I help another woman reduce her trauma? Success. Did I help another woman not feel suicidal because her PMDD was dragging her down with her? Success, right? So I redefined success for myself. I redefined how I was going to live in the patriarchy, and I was not going to play by the patriarchal rules anymore. And that reduced my period pain again. So if defying the patriarchy is part of your onion peel, it was certainly part of mine, and I hope you embrace it and use some of that anger of being abandoned by Western medicine, by the patriarchy, by every study. The studies that came out about endometriosis first was the attractiveness level of women with endometriosis and how it affected their male partners was the second study. Do we know how endometriosis starts? Nope. Maybe we're getting close now at the time of this recording, but we still don't actually know. We still don't actually know how it works, how it operates in the body, how the pain systems work. We know that the endocannabinoid system is not working properly, and that does include pain systems in the body. So we do know that you need the endocannabinoid to get back online and work better for your pain to reduce. And that's part of what I'm going to talk about in this podcast over time as well. But I never want to see another woman failed by the system. I'm here. I'm happy to help you. And that's why I'm doing this for free. I'm paying for this podcast. It can be free for you so that you don't have to go through what I went through. I don't want you to have to go through the long, traumatic journey of living with the pain for decades, and then the repair and the PTSD and the trauma that you have to heal even after you move through the pain that I had to go through. I don't want any of that for you. I want you to skip all that crap. This is what inspires me. This is what keeps me going. This is what, when times get hard, because they do, I stick to it. This is, I'm going to get a little teary here, but this is it. Like I desperately don't want anyone else to live in the ignorance, the pain, and the suffering that I did. I want you to have a magical, amazing relationship with your cycle. I want you to believe in the divine feminine of cycles. Again, I want you to feel strength and power from that, not crippling trauma and pain. I want better for you than I had and that I got, and I want it to be something that really empowers your life, that brings you strength, that brings you joy, that brings you ease and flow and grace and everything else good and beautiful and strong. And I want that for you. I want what I didn't get. And that's why I do what I do. It's why I started my business. It's why I started period coaching school, so that I could teach other people how to do what I do, so that they could go out and help people, and they have. And that to me is just like, I can't believe that there's a woman out there that has less pain. And I didn't even have to be the one that was there for her. It was, right? That's the ripple effect, that big possibility and that potential. I do everything I do with the base concept of, how can we help women? How can we help you connect back in and use this for power, for good, for you? So thank you for letting me share my story. Thank you for listening to this. I don't love talking about it, but I do know that I need to, and that other people need to understand where I come from to take me seriously, to understand that I get it, that I'm not just like somebody out here grifting, trying to make money off other women's pain. I'm trying to keep lights on in my house. I do a ton of stuff for free. And then, I also need to get paid so that I can also, do this for free for you, so that I pay for it instead of you pay for it, right? Like, I still need clients. I still need to make money. I still charge people for period coaching school. I do have scholarships and those kinds of things so that it's accessible. I started a nonprofit, for God's sakes, so that people could get this knowledge. So there is so much to what I do, the books that I've written, the courses that I have, Flow Freedom. There's so many ways that I have put at different price points out there so that there's something accessible to everybody at every level. And I have spent my life researching it. I may not have a doctorate, but I have the hours for a doctorate, frankly. Maybe I'll go get some more certifications so I look even more official than I already do. But I have spent my life doing this work. I know how it works. I know what helps. I know what it is. And I'm here to help. So if you are still searching for answers, please don't give up. My hope has passed to you, I hope. Your pain is real. Your experience is valid, and you deserve to be heard. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be hugged, to be comforted. So, in tradition of this podcast, as a coach who wants to see you succeed, there is an action step at the end of this episode. Write down your own story. Even if it's just for yourself, even if it's not going out into the world anywhere, write your own story. It's cathartic to get it out. Writing The Revolution Will Be Bloody was hard. There was quite literally blood and tears in that book, but it was also cathartic. And write it down for yourself, or talk to text it if that's better for you or your learning style. Because your story matters. It matters too. And I would love for you to share it. The world needs to know. Other women need to know. Other women need to have the same access and understanding and know that they too are not alone out there in the world. But at the very least, share this one. So we've covered 4 root causes for period pain, the big ones, the ones I see the most commonly in my clients, some overlapping. I shared my story today. And now, looking towards the future of this podcast, we're going to start talking about the practical side of healing. I'm going to give you specific protocols. We'll talk about cycle syncing, and that is a huge subject. That could be 6 months right there. We'll talk about how to build a life that supports pain-free periods so that you can live a life again. And as always, if this episode helped you, please rate and review the show, share it with a friend, tag me at Stasha Washburn on any of your socials. Tell me what hit you in the gut, what resonated with you, what light bulbs came on. And if you're ready to go deeper, as always, I do work one-on-one with clients. I do have things like period coaching school if you want to become an educator. I do have free courses and cheap courses. So if you want to jump in, just reach out and let me know. I'm happy to help. You can always go to theperiodcoach.com to learn more. You can go to the Period Besties Live and Unfiltered Summit in September. It's free. I'll pop in the link below. We're going to talk with amazing experts and have all these great panels on different topics that can help you as well. There are several things that you can do. Just pick one and get started. Remember, the revolution will be bloody, and it starts with telling your truth. Be bold, be brave, speak your truth, tell your story. Until next time, take care of yourself. You are worth it.